Good morning. Today we'll start with refrigeration cycles. Actual vapor compression refrigeration cycle. An actual vapor compression refrigeration cycle differs from ideal one in several ways, owing mostly to its irreversibilities that occur in various components. Two common sources of reversibility are fluid friction and heat transfer to or from the surrounding. The TS diagram of an actual vapor refrigeration cycle is shown. In the ideal case, the refrigerant leaves the evaporator and enters compressor as saturated vapor. In practice, however, it may not be possible to control the state of refrigerant so precisely. Instead, it is easier to design the system so that the refrigerant is slightly superheated at compressor inlet. Means it is better to go above the saturated vapor line, and it will also ensure the inlet to the compressor in the vapor form. So this slight over design ensures the refrigerant is completely vaporized when it enters the compressor. Also this line connecting from A to 1. So from A to 1, definitely there is some heat loss, you can say, or heat gain from the environment, which will result in increase in the temperature, or you can say superheat of the vapor. So from A to 1 is your heat gain from the environment. So thus the pressure drop caused by fluid friction and heat transfer from surrounding to the refrigerant can be very significant. The result of superheating, heat gain in the connecting line and pressure drops in evaporator, and the connecting line is an increase in specific volume, thus an increase in the power input requirements to the compressor, since steady flow work is proportional to specific volume. The compression process in the ideal cycle is internally reversible and adiabatic and thus isentropic. The actual compression process, however, involves frictional effects which increase the entropy, and heat transfer which may increase or decrease the entropy depending on the direction. Therefore, entropy of the refrigerant may increase, process 2 to 1 to 2, or decrease, press 1 to 2 dash. So in the ideal case, it should be isentropic. It may entropy, but the actual process is either 1 to 2 with increase in entropy from 1 to 2, or it can be decrease of entropy from 1 to 2 dash. Therefore, the refrigerant should be cooled during the compression process wherever it is practical and economical to do so. In the ideal case, the refrigerant is assumed to leave the condenser as saturated liquid at the compressor exit pressure. In reality, however, it is unavoidable to have some pressure drop in condenser as well as in the lines connecting the condenser to the compressor and the throttling valve. So from here you can see the pressure drop in the condenser. So this is the dotted line, which is constant pressure line, but this you had some pressure drop. Also, it is not easy to execute the condensation process with such precision that the refrigerant is saturated liquid at the end, and it is undesirable to route the refrigerant to the throttling valve before the refrigerant is completely condensed. Means the 5 should be in the liquid form, and to ensure that it should be liquid, we have to go little bit beyond this line, which is saturated liquid line, to ensure the throttle valve inlet should be pure liquid form. Therefore, the refrigerant is subcooled somewhat before it enters the throttling valve. Subcooling is good in some case because since the refrigerant in this case enters the evaporator with a lower enthalpy and thus can absorb more heat from the refrigerator space, the throttling valve and evaporator are usually located very close to each other, so that pressure drop in the connecting line is small. So means expansion valve, which is called throttling valve, and evaporator should be placed near to each other, because after the expansion pressure is low, and also to decrease the pressure drop, so they should place nearly. So you can see here from 6 to 7 there is this process, some amount of heat is gained from the environment also, and from 7 to 8 this is your evaporator here. Next is selection of the right refrigerant. When designing a refrigerant system, there are several refrigerants from which to choose, such as chlorophores, ammonia, hydrocarbons, propane, ethane, ethylene, etc., carbon dioxide, air in the air conditioning of aircraft, and even water in application above the freezing point. The right choice of refrigerant depends on the situation at hand Of course, these refrigerants such as R11, R12, R22, R3124A and R52 are count over 90% of market in United States. Ethyl ether was the first commercially used refrigerant in vapor compression system in 1850, followed by ammonia, carbon dioxide, methyl chloride, sulfur dioxide, butane, ethane, propane, isobutane, gasoline and chlorofluorocarbons among others. So chlorofluorocarbons are derivatives from hydrocarbons. The industrial and heavy commercial sectors were very satisfied with ammonia and still are, although ammonia is toxic. The advantage of ammonia over other refrigerant at its low cost, higher coefficient of performance, more favorable thermodynamic and transport properties and thus higher heat transfer coefficients, require smaller and lower cost heat exchangers, greater detectability in the event of leak and no effect on the ozone layer. The major drawback of ammonia is toxicity, which makes it unsuitable for domestic use. Ammonia is predominantly used in food refrigeration facilities such as cooling of fruits, vegetables, in beverages, dairy products such as and wine, milk, cheese, freezing of ice cream and other products. Early refrigerant use light commercial and household sector such as sulfur dioxide, ethyl chloride and methyl chloride, but they were toxic, so they were eliminated. So General Motors Search Laboratory developed R21 in 1928. So this R12 of several CFC developed, the research team settled R12 as a refrigerant most suitable for commercial use and gave CFC family the trade name Freon. Commercial production of R11, R12 was started in 1931 by company jointly founded by General Motors. So this is the R11 and R12 were the most usually refrigerants. R11 is used primarily in large capacity water chillers serving air conditioning systems in building. R12 is used in domestic refrigerators and fridges as well as automatic air conditioners. R22 is used in window air conditioners, heat pumps, air conditioners of commercial buildings and large industrial refrigeration system and offers strong competition to ammonia. R502 is the dominant refrigerant used in commercial refrigeration system such as those in supermarkets because it allows low temperature at evaporates while operating at a single stage compression. But there is a major drawback of CFC, which is here ozone depleting potential. It was realized in mid 1970 that CFC allows more ultraviolet radiation into Earth's atmosphere by destroying the protective ozone layer and thus contributing to the greenhouse effect that causes global warming. As a result, the use of CFC is banned by international treaties. Fully halogenated CFCs such as R11, R12 and R115 do most damage to the ozone layer. The non-fully halogenated refrigerants such as R22 have about 5% of the ozone depletion capability of R12. Refrigerants that are friendly to the ozone layer that protects the earth from harmful ultraviolet rays have been developed. The once popular refrigerant R12 has largely been replaced by the recently developed chlorine-free R134A. Two important parameters that need to be considered in the selection of a refrigerant are the temperatures of the two media, the refrigerator space and the environment with which the refrigerant exchange heat. To have heat transfer at a reasonable rate, a temperature difference of 5 to 10 degrees Celsius should be maintained between the refrigerant and the medium with which it is exchanging heat. Say if refrigerator space is to be maintained at minus 10 degrees Celsius, for example, the temperature of refrigerant should remain at about minus 20 degrees Celsius while it absorbs heat in evaporator. The lowest pressure in a refrigeration cycle occurs in evaporator and this pressure should be above atmospheric pressure to prevent any air leakage into the refrigeration system. Therefore, a refrigerant should have a saturated pressure of 1 atmosphere or higher at minus 20 degrees Celsius. In this particular case, ammonia and R134A are two such substances. The temperature and thus the pressure of refrigerant in the condenser side depends on the medium to which heat is rejected. Lower temperature in condenser, thus higher COPs can be maintained if the refrigerant is cooled by liquid water instead of air. The use of water cooling cannot be justified economically, however, except in large industrial refrigeration systems. The temperature of the refrigerant in the condenser cannot fall below the temperature of cooling medium, about 20 degrees for household refrigerator, and the saturation pressure of the refrigerant at this temperature should be well below its critical pressure if heat rejection process is approximately isothermal. If no single refrigerant can meet the temperature requirements, then two or more refrigerant cycles with different refrigerants can be used in a series. Such a refrigerant system is called a system and is discussed later in this chapter. Heat pump systems. Heat pumps are generally more expensive to purchase and install than other heating systems, but they save money in long run in some areas because they lower the heating bills. Despite their relatively higher initial cost, the popularity of heat pump is increasing. About 1/3 of all single family homes built in United States in last decade are heated by heat pumps. The most common energy source of heat pump is atmosphere air, although water and soil are also used. So water source which are below the ground from depth of up to 80 meter in the temperature range of 5 to 18, and they do not have a frosting problem. They typically have higher COP but are more complex and require easy access to large body of water such as underground water. Means underground water is even in winter is at very low you can say temperature range of 5 to 18. So this heat in the winter can be taken from the underground water for the heating purpose. The COP heat pumps usually lies between 1.5 and 4 depending on the particular system used and the temperature of the source. A new class of recently developed heat pumps that use variable speed electric motor drive are at least twice as energy efficient as their predecessors. Heat pumps and air conditioners have the same mechanical components, therefore it is not economical to have two separate systems to meet the heating and cooling requirements. Means the same refrigerator system can be used a heat pump. You can see in this figure. So first we will discuss the operation of in cooling mode. So this is your compressor. After compression, high temperature refrigerant will go to outer coil and the heat will be transferred to the outside environment. Because temperature this is refrigerant is much more than the outer temperature. So heat will transfer from this refrigerant to the outside environment. It will condense. After condensation in the expansion valve, it will expand and temperature of it will drop and it will come to this evaporator coil where heat is absorbed from the cooling space. So this is indoor coil, means indoor unit which is placed. So heat is absorbed from the indoor space, it will go to the refrigerant and now refrigerant will come out as the vapor phase. So this vapor phase refrigerant will go to the compressor and then cycle is completed. Now what we'll do, we use a reversing valve here in this place. If you reverse this valve, now this pump will act as a you can say refrigerator will in cooling mode will act as a heat pump operation in heating mode. So now the direction of the fluid as a compressor, it will go in the previous case you can see it is in this direction. Now the fluid will go first into the indoor coil. After compression the temperature will be very high. So in the indoor coil what will happen, suppose heat will be transferred to the this you can say indoor unit, means is this you can say place which has to be heated. So heat will transfer from coil to this place and it will get heated. So our purpose of heat pump is fulfilled. Then the cooled refrigerant will go to the expansion valve, it will expand and it is further cooled. Because now it is further cooled, so this is the outer unit. Now in this case outer unit having some heat, or you can say this outer unit is subjected to environment which is having higher temperature than this refrigerant. So heat is transferred from environment to the refrigerant and after this refrigerant will go, after taking the heat it will go to the compressor and the cycle is completed. So means heat is taken from the environment and it is transferred to the indoor, you can say the space or house which needs to be heated. So this way a heat pump operation in cooling mode and the same pump can be do work in the heating mode. Heat pump and air conditioners have same mechanical components, therefore it is not equivalent to have separate systems. One system can be used is shown here. So the condenser of the heat pump functions as evaporator of air conditioner in summer. Also the evaporator of heat pump serves as a condenser of the air conditioner. This feature increases the competitiveness of heat pump. Such dual purpose units are commonly used in models. Heat pumps are most competitive in areas that have a large cooling load during the cooling season and a relatively small heating load during the heating season, such as in southern parts of United States. So this is up to about the heat pumps. Like this video, subscribe this channel, and thank you for watching this video.